Turn to our law and justice story tonight. Shocking new revelations about Planned Parenthood's scheme to sell aborted baby body parts. David DeLeiden and the Center for Medical Progress released new videotaped testimony of Planned Parenthood officials admitting under oath to baby body part trafficking. Remember, Planned Parenthood, which is the biggest abortion in the nation, and their mainstream media allies have insisted for years now that Planned Parenthood did not sell aborted baby body parts for profit. But when facing the penalty of perjury, Planned Parenthood's story suddenly changes. Video shows Planned Parenthood lied to Congress when they said that Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast had rebuffed a proposal to sell fetal livers for $750 each. But here's what Planned Parenthood said under oath in court. Take a listen.
The last page of the document says that the fee to Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast for a fetal liver would be $750, and the fee for a fetal liver and a thymus would be $1,600. This is an email chain between you and Doe 9012, who is the Regional Medical and Surgical Services Director, who we understand is Diane Santos. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
So you say, FYI, we're still trying to move forward with this. She responds to you and says, do you want to do this? You respond to her and say, yes, ma'am. Do you remember that exchange?
Not until yesterday.
Okay. So you wanted to move forward with the contract we just saw with those price terms?
Objection, mischaracterizing the document. Mischaracterizing testimony. Vague. I know I wanted to move forward with it.
Planned Parenthood also publicly claimed that they only collected reimbursements for employee time and costs. But on tape, they admitted they only received money if they provided STEM Express with usable body parts, which clearly falls outside of the law of just reimbursing costs and under the definition of profit. Take a look.
Again, though, PPMM would only be reimbursed if the sample is actually usable. Is that correct?
Yes.
So would it have been in PPM's best interest in seeking to recoup its costs if it would try to maximize the number of usable samples?
Objection, vague, calls for speculation.
In our mission to support medical research, it would be, we would have liked to provide usable samples for free medical research.
So now the public knows the truth about Planned Parenthood in their own words. Will the organization face any repercussions? And will Congress finally cut their taxpayer funding once and for all? With me now, project lead at the Center for Medical Progress, David DeLeiden. David, thank you for joining me.
Liz, it's great to be here.
All right, David, I don't know how they deny this now that we have their testimony under oath in their own words on videotape right in front of us.
That's correct. They can't deny it anymore. There is no way for Planned Parenthood to get away from it now when their own top leadership and top officials are sworn in under oath in a court proceeding, admitting to the same allegations that we have been reporting on for the past 5 years that are captured in the original undercover footage. Remember, when the undercover videos were released, Planned Parenthood tried to claim that they were whiter than snow, that there was nothing to see here. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And they claimed that it was all heavily edited, that it was all nothing to pay attention to. And they even made multiple representations to Congress about the goodness of their conduct and the fact that they hadn't done anything wrong. Now, when their own people are put under oath, the story changes and they admit that they sold body parts as the quid pro quo in their business relationship with companies like STEM Express. What this boils down to is, what were they actually getting paid money for? What did the money actually incentivize Planned Parenthood to do? The law recognizes that there is a big difference and an unbridgeable difference between reimbursing somebody for, say, some gloves or PPE in a medical office that is used up, which might incentivize somebody to overstock on their PPE, versus paying somebody for usable, marketable body parts. That's what it means. A usable body part for STEM Express is one that STEM Express is going to be able to sell on to their research customers. So that means that Planned Parenthood was only getting payments from STEM Express if STEM Express was actually able to sell the body parts that they were harvesting inside of Planned Parenthood. That is the definition of valuable consideration for body parts under the federal law, and that's a crime, and Planned Parenthood should be held accountable for that, and there should be federal consequences for what they've now admitted under oath.
Well, that's my question. How do they avoid prosecution under the letter of the law when now that their denials have been contradicted by their own words, their own testimony under oath, we know for a fact that they're admitting there was this quid pro quo, meaning it wasn't just you reimbursing me for my time, it was you reimbursing me if my time produced what you wanted it to produce, which means that they were paying not for the time, but for the actual product.
Exactly. If this is a fair system, if there is actually equal justice under the law, and there is not a separate set of laws for abortion doctors compared to all the rest of us, then Planned Parenthood should be held accountable under federal law. They should be disbarred from Medicaid. There should be serious federal consequences for this now pattern of lawlessness that we see from them. Just the news that came out last week about 37 Planned Parenthood affiliates across the country. That's 75% of the organization, folks, stealing $80 million from the federal coronavirus relief loan program that they were not entitled to. There have to be federal consequences for this lawless organization. Native American tribe members have been prosecuted by the Department of Justice for selling eagle body parts. All right, so I surely the U.S. Department of Justice under the Trump administration doesn't believe that it is a greater crime to sell eagle body parts than it is to sell tiny baby body parts from abortions. So I hope that we will see justice under the law for Planned Parenthood and anybody else who would harvest and sell and traffic the body parts of human children as if they were just widgets on an assembly line.
Planned Parenthood responded to the release of this video publicly this week. This isn't actually typical for Planned Parenthood. They usually try to ignore it, hoping that the general public doesn't hear about it since the mainstream media won't report on these stories. But they targeted you on Twitter by name. They targeted your organization, the Center for Medical Progress, by name, still maintaining that they were innocent and that you were a fraud. How do you respond to that?
They are guilty, and they know they're guilty, and they're afraid, and that's why they're responding in the way that they are. You notice in Planned Parenthood's response on Twitter, they didn't make any direct mention or refutation we're saying under oath. They can't go and claim that their officials were not telling the truth. I mean, then they'll be admitting that they were perjuring themselves. So they're just trying to distract. I mean, it was really ironic, especially, that Planned Parenthood tries to say on Twitter that all of this evidence has been aired and litigated before, and the jury came out against me. This is the exact evidence in these videos that Judge Orrick, who founded a Planned Parenthood clinic in San Francisco, would not allow the jury to see during the trial at the end of the last year. So it's incredibly ironic that Planned Parenthood is trying to rely on those previous proceedings at the end of the year to say that this has already been aired in public and examined. It has not. It was blocked from examination by the jury, by the judge in this case.
And
so
it's really shocking to me, by the way.
Now that gets out to law enforcement.
It's really shocking to me, by the way, that who was a founder of a Planned Parenthood clinic is allowed to preside over this case. If that's not a conflict of interest, then I don't know what is. David, please keep us updated as this moves forward, because this ought to motivate law enforcement to investigate Planned Parenthood. Thank you for being on the show.